Every generation gets more evil and wicked. We are not evolving, we are devolving. We are not getting better, we're getting worse. And we're so deceived in evil that we live under the myth that we are somehow closer to being like Jesus than they were a few thousand years ago. Syncretism is this: when you take what God says and you take what God forbids and you affirm both. Syncretism is where you have that which is for God and that which is anti-God, and you try and bring them together with some sort of reconciliation. That's the buzzword. That's the virtue signaling word for syncretism, is reconciling. And what we have here is Baal and Asherah, two demon gods. Religions are propagated by powerful demonic forces in the unseen realm. Baal was considered the chief male deity. Asherah was considered the chief female deity. It is said that they had illicit sexual intimate relations. The ancient worship was very pornographic, and when people would gather for church, they would do the unthinkable, unspeakable, unimaginable. These two were considered the god and goddess over fertility, crops, birth of children, and the rain. That's why when God answers Elijah's request and doesn't allow rain to come for 3 years, it is a direct declaration of war against Baal, the god of rain. They were also pro-abortion. To worship these gods and goddesses, you would commit sexual immorality and then you would take your child and you would literally offer it as a sacrifice to a demon god. And so what you had in these days of Israel was syncretism. You had the history of the worship of God according to the 10 Commandments of Moses in the Bible, and you added to that the worship of demon gods. The very same thing that's happening everywhere in Western civilization and culture. I'll give you an example. This is the state Supreme Court in New York. Standing for many years was a monument to Moses. He, with the 10 Commandments opening and showing that we are to be governed by rule of law. Recently, a statue was added of Medusa as a tribute to abortion. That's where people go for justice. That's exactly what syncretism in ancient Israel looked like, and it looks like today. You can take it off the screen before I throw up in my mouth. Welcome to New York. What happens when there is syncretism, there is apostasy. That's where people are for and anti-God. They say they are for God, but they live anti-God. They follow in the ways of Judas, not Jesus. The word apostasy comes from ancient battle. When you would go to war for your king and your kingdom, if in the middle of the battle you changed sides and you fought and warred against your king and kingdom, that was treason. It was called apostasy. What is true physically is also true spiritually. Today we would call it wokeism, deconstructionism, progressivism. We have social Marxism, and it shows up most prominently today in issues of sex and marriage and gender and parenting. And again, in the days of Elijah, they closed the churches, they closed the Christian Bible teaching schools, and they canceled and ultimately killed the prophets. These are the same days. The church was closed, Christian schools and education are under attack. The authority of parents to decide what their children learn and don't learn is now suddenly debatable. And if you should say anything, you will be deplatformed and you will be canceled. And what has happened now is the Church of Jesus Christ has been closed and it has not bounced back. We're now seeing record low church attendance in the history of our nation. Not surprisingly, we're also seeing historic levels of mental health problems. In addition, a lot of churches that are now open, they were so gripped by a spirit of fear during the season of false prophecies that they are cowardly. They have lost their courage. Those pastors are soft woke. The difference between a soft woke and a true woke pastor is simply honesty and integrity and overtness. Not what they believe, but what they will declare.
Howdy, Pastor Mark here. Thanks for viewing the clip. And if you'd like the entire sermon, we've got it ready to go.